The views expressed in this podcast are my own and those of my guests. They do not represent or reflect those of UCSF Health or my professional and clinical roles there. The content is intended for informational purposes only and is not medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare professional for specific medical guidance. In today's episode, I wanted to do things a little bit differently. I've asked my friend and colleague, Joan, to interview me. I wanted to give you an opportunity to learn more about my story, the experiences that shaped my career, and my passion for making healthcare knowledge more approachable. If you'd like to get to know me better, this episode is a great start. You can also check out the show notes from today's episode on Substack, my UCSF Health profile, or my Instagram and TikTok. I feel that I've lived several lives already, and I'm only in my mid-40s. I've been and am a mom to 4 now grown-up kids, a barista, a manager at a pizza restaurant. But my healthcare career started when I was curious about a mother's experience and my own experience around childbirth. I became a doula, a certified childbirth educator, and a birth assistant for licensed midwives. I was accepted into the nursing program at the University of North Florida and worked at St. Vincent's Riverside as a medical surgical nurse. I went straight into graduate school at the University of Florida and exited with my master's degree and my certification as a primary care pediatric nurse practitioner. I was faculty at the University of North Florida in the School of Nursing, and I also worked with the Tony Boselli Foundation's Healthy Schools program and as a nursing supervisor at both St. Vincent's Riverside and Baptist Beaches hospitals. I then went on to earn my doctorate in nursing practice at the University of North Florida and my certification as a family nurse practitioner. I was then an inpatient cardiology and electrophysiology nurse practitioner at St. Vincent's Riverside before I accepted a position as both an inpatient and outpatient electrophysiology nurse practitioner at Marin Health, which was the impetus for moving from coast to coast to the San Francisco Bay Area. I then was offered a position at UCSF Health as an outpatient electrophysiology nurse practitioner in the summer of 2022. If you have any questions about my path, or if I can help you on your journey, or you have any ideas for upcoming episodes, please leave a comment on any of my social media platforms or Substack. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and getting to know me, and it helps you see why I feel strongly about access to care and understandable healthcare information for everyone.
Well, Nadine, thanks so much for having me here today to speak with you about your journey in nursing. It's an honor. And so I look forward to kind of having this discussion and seeing where it takes us. One of the things that I was curious about is what inspired you to pursue a career in nursing, and how did you decide to specialize in electrophysiology?
Wow, those are great questions. Because if you had asked me growing up if I ever thought I would be a nurse, I would have said, ew, gross, no. Actually, that didn't come about until I had most, if not all, of my kids. And I went back to school just to get an AA. And someone said to me, you'd really make a great nurse. And I was like, I don't think so. But then I looked into it and I saw like all the different ways that career in nursing could take me. And I was like, maybe that's something I would want to do. How did you come into nursing?
I liked biology and I liked helping people. And that just kind of was something that then encouraged me to select nursing as my field of study in college. So kind of happened that way.
That's cool. Yeah. One thing that I loved in the prereqs that we had to take was microbiology. And I almost veered off because I just thought that was the coolest class. We got to, do the agar plates and see things grow. And I was like, this is fascinating. But then when I thought about it more and more, I was like, I don't want to be in a basement lab. I want to be around people and help them. So not that microbiologists don't help people, but I wanted more hands-on.
I really understand that. It takes a special individual to flourish, so to speak, in a lab.
Well, remember Dr. Scheinman talking about that too? He was like, I was alone and doing all this stuff. And he's like, I think he wanted that people piece as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
As far as electrophysiology, that's kind of a story in itself. I know you know the story, but for everyone else, when I was little, I think I was 7, I lived with my dad and my grandparents. And so my Ukrainian grandmother, also lovingly referred to as Baba, was my favorite person in the whole universe. And my dad and I had gone to the grocery store with her, and she had reached down into the meat case to like pick up a package of ground beef or something. And her nose just started bleeding uncontrollably. And it's frightening. You're 7 years old. Your favorite person in the whole world is bleeding all over. They called 911. The ambulance came and got her. They took her to the hospital. They told me she had to see a heart doctor. And then I was scared of heart doctors. I was like, something very terrible could happen to my heart. And I remember she came home and she washed the salt off of her potato chips because she had had a hypertensive crisis. And I know I said a little bit about this in the episode with Dr. Scheinman, but after that, I had a fear of cardiology. And when I went into nursing, I never did telemetry nursing, which for everyone listening, telemetry is really where patients are monitored. Their heart is monitored on, I don't know, Joan, describe telemetry.
Real-time cardiac monitoring,
Right.
where you can view from a central station someone's heart rhythm and at the bedside too.
Yeah. So I never did that. I did med-surg nursing where patients weren't really connected to any kind of monitoring. And then it was post-op ortho, hips and knees. And then I moved to women's surgical oncology at one point. So post-op hysterectomies and mastectomies. And so I didn't have a lot of experience with that. And I did my pediatric nurse practitioner and did a rotation in cardiology because we got to choose 2 specialties. And I chose cardiology because I was afraid of it, because I thought, I'll face my fears. And I really did like it. It was just not a lot of jobs in pediatric cardiology in Jacksonville at the time. So I ended up just doing primary care. And then I went in to get my doctorate, and my mentor said, dude, you need to get your family nurse practitioner also, or you're pigeonholed into pediatrics. And I didn't really want to, but I'm super glad I had such a wise mentor, because I did. And the first clinical rotation I got placed in was in an outpatient electrophysiology clinic. I worked with one of my very good friends, mentors, Angela Baker, and she taught me everything she knew about electrophysiology. And the electrophysiologists at Ascension St. Vincent's, Riverside in Jacksonville, Florida were amazing. They taught me so much. Dr. Tony Magnano is my founding father to me, an EP. He really nurtured my love of EP and their whole team there. And they allowed me to do all of my clinicals there. I never left. And then they hired me to work inpatient. I really felt closer to my baba seeing patients in electrophysiology, because after the hypertensive crisis, she eventually got atrial fibrillation. She was on Warfarin. She should say, like, Nadja, I have to take my rat poison. And I'm like, why is my baba taking rat poison? And then like, oh, it's a blood thinner. Okay. And she was on amiodarone. She ended up getting a pacemaker. So it's like all the things that I take care of now that she had. And so every patient that I get the honor to work with is like, I get to take care of her. And so that's kind of why I love EP so much, besides the fact that it's fascinating.
Yeah, that's great. It is true that when your life is touched by somebody such as your baba, and you see them have a certain set of circumstances, then it can actually encourage you to want to learn more and kind of practice in the specialty at which, you thought that they required the treatment from. So that's great. I love it. Such a amazing story. And you've had how many years now as a nurse practitioner?
Pediatric nurse practitioner started in 2015. And then I graduated with my family in 2019. So, and
awesome.
So, I've been doing EP as a certified nurse practitioner since 2019. So,
wonderful. Yep. And just to think of also just your journey and your courage to come from Florida and then move out here and practice on the West Coast is pretty inspiring too, you know?
It was such an adventure too. Florida was like my home where I started as a nurse. I grew up in that hospital at St. Vincent's Riverside. Like, I know it backwards and forwards, and being a house supervisor there, like, in working night shift and day shift and the people there, it really felt like a good team. But being able to come to the West Coast and see how we practice out here, it's the same, but it's different. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity that I had at Marin Health, and now the opportunities that I have at UCSF Health, and everyone that I've been with along the way. It's really been amazing. And now I get to collaborate with people back in Florida, and we ask each other questions all the time, and I'm making new friends in other parts of the country too, which is great. I have some EP, NP friends in Idaho and North Carolina, and so it's just a great community that we see practice nuances, and we can learn from each other and, do better for our patients.
Yeah, it's the connections are important, huh? And it's so great. I mean, you're such a motivated individual, and then you, take all of these steps to collaborate and build networks with others in the field. So I love it. I mean, I see it all the time from you. I'm glad we get to share a bit of your story today with everybody else. Can you, by any chance, recall an experience as a faculty member in nursing education and how being a part of a faculty team kind of felt, and or how that also has shaped how you practice?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Geez. My senior year for my bachelor's degree, I presented a poster presentation at, this is a mouthful, the National Student Nurses Association National Convention in Pittsburgh. It was on neonatal pain assessment. And I had this poster board up, and I was doing the presentation, and the editor for Advanced for Nurses walked by. And she said, "Oh, I love this." She's like, "Can I publish it?" And I was like, yes, of course you can. And I went out to dinner with some of my classmates and one of my mentors, Dr. Ahrens, and he was like, "Well, what do you want to do with your career?" And I was like, "I want to teach. I really have a heart for teaching." And he's like, "Well, you have to go to grad school then." And I have to say that the faculty that I had in my undergraduate nursing program really inspired me. I had some things come up in my family during my time there where they supported me. They always encouraged me to shoot for the stars, to keep going. I could do anything. I really felt that way from them. And I wanted to foster that in other people. So I went to grad school, and that's what I did. And I will tell you, the greatest joy for me in being with students, because I started as a clinical instructor. So that's where in nursing school, I know you know this, Joan, because you're a nurse, but being a clinical instructor means you go with the students to the hospital or to the clinical sites, and you're there supervising, finding interesting things for them to do, teaching them along the way. We do procedures like, insert Foley catheters or NG tubes, start IVs, do med passes, physical assessments, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I started. And then I did teach in didactic, which is more like academic, where, but they were fun because they were labs too. I did fundamentals of nursing and health assessment and PNI, which is like professional nursing integration for seniors. But my favorite thing is watching a student nurse find their passion, find something that just like you see that spark go off. And it's like if somebody sees their first baby be born and they are meant to be a labor and delivery nurse, and you see that click in them, and then they just get like wild excited about it. Like that is my favorite thing. Like people who like, I just watched this amazing surgery where I would probably not want to see that. Like they see it and they're like, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to work in the OR, or, having someone find that and be excited, like that is my favorite thing ever. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And we need people to be fostering, the next generation of nurses. So I love that that is in your background and what you have done to date and may do again down the road.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, it's not just for nurses. It's like for everybody. Like, I know, we have a friend. His name is Anu, and he's in med school right now. Shout out to Anu. He worked in the device field and worked with one of the device vendors as a biomedical engineer before he went to med school. And everyone just kind of assumed that he would go into electrophysiology. And the only advice I could give was just be open to anything, because you never know. Maybe it's EP, but maybe you want to be a podiatrist, which I doubt he does. But he may, and just keep yourself open. And that's what I always told the nursing students, like, keep yourself open, because you never know when you're going to have that moment where it's all going to click and you're like, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. And that can change over your career. I'm sure that you've experienced that or know that experience.
100%. Yeah. I feel like most satisfied doing what I do currently. And, heck, I'm 27 years in. So, yeah, absolutely. And it can change over time. And we have to permit ourselves that ability to grow. What has been the most rewarding and most challenging aspect of your career in healthcare?
Wow. Okay. Wow. I'd have to say the most rewarding is as a faculty member, it's what we just talked about. As a clinician, it's when patients verbalize to me that they were able to better understand what was going on with them, and they were able to make the right decision with the information that I gave them. There's nothing better than that, because that's really what this job is about. It's about having the knowledge and the evidence and being able to help people make their own decisions with that information. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. Challenges, feeling like an imposter every day, just because, there will always be people who know more and would make different decisions and who are better than you. And you can't let that stop you from doing your best with your patients and with your colleagues, because we all help each other learn and grow. And I think that that's one thing that always feels like a challenge to me, like to not lose sight of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And definitely something that we all need to remember, right?
Yeah.
Patient education is key. As far as electrophysiology, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about cardiology and electrophysiology?
Okay, great question. One of them is that anytime someone has a palpitation, they feel like they're having a heart attack. That's a lot of ums. It's I have to say this carefully, because I think everything is very serious when it comes to your heart, and getting proper information from the appropriate healthcare provider can give you so much reassurance. Because I know Carlo talked about being really scared when he had AFib in episode 1, when we talked about the AppleWatch. And atrial fibrillation is not a life-threatening arrhythmia. It can be very life-bothersome, and it does put you at higher risk for stroke, but it's not like a dramatic, hospitalized heart attack event like they show you, and I think maybe that's the misconception, is that television and movies make cardiology and electrophysiology look really scary, when it can be, but most of the time it's not, and it can be managed very well.
So true. And we have so many treatments available, right?
Right.
Whether it be from somebody having an MI and requiring a stent and access to that in many communities, or electrophysiology really has become something that is available in many communities and settings outside of big urban areas.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the other thing. People don't understand that the different subspecialties of cardiology, because cardiology on its own is a specialty that I tell patients that if you think of your heart as a house, a general cardiologist is the general contractor. They kind of look over the whole house, right? So when you have an electrical problem, you come to the electricians, which are us in electrophysiology. We're the electricians. That's what we specialize in. And then if you need a plumber, we send you to interventional cardiology. And then there are other like subcontractors and things like that work on your house, all within that cardiology framework, but different.
Yep. So many subspecialties. I see that certainly where we work. It's amazing. The variety of individual practices or groups, heart failure, genetics,
pulmonary hypertension,
yeah. Adult congenital,
yep,
all the things.
I think we even have cardiology oncology now, which is a great help to our patients.
Absolutely. What would you say inspired you to start your podcast?
Oh, that's an awesome question. I have a background in theater. I actually thought when I was growing up that I was going to be an actress on Broadway. So that was always fun for me, like talking to people and like just being out there. I recently talked to my stepdad and he was like, "You were never afraid to do anything." And I'm like, "Really? I was frightened, but I'm glad you thought I wasn't afraid." But what really inspired me to do this was I feel like there's a lot of unintentional gatekeeping in healthcare. And if people know what is happening, I think that their expectations are tempered. For example, we have a patient who's going to have an ablation. They come into the hospital and they think they're going to get right to the hospital. They're going to go right back, get in the bed, get their IV, and go right off to the EP lab. We know that's not going to happen.
That's right.
They're going to come and check in really early, and they're going to wait and wait and wait. And then they're going to go to the pre-op area, and then they're going to wait and wait and wait. And then we don't know when the start time will be exactly because it all depends on what's going on in the hospital around you. Like, it's an acute care center. There could be an emergency. Something could get tied up. Equipment can fail. Your procedure might have to be postponed. And I think that's just one small example. Like, if you just don't know, if you're going into a hospital setting, the clock doesn't exist. And you, what did you say once? What did you tell patients to expect?
Oh, bring a book and your patient.
Exactly. Like that's just one thing that if everybody just knew that it would be helpful. And so there's little things that I see that if we could just tell people, then I think it would make a difference. And so that's what I wanted to do. And not just people as in patients. I mean, we are patients, you and me, but we're all
consumers of healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone is.
Everyone is, yeah.
But we're also nurses. And I think in nursing, because we're so specialized in what we do, that it's interesting to learn about other areas in nursing and healthcare as well. And so I wanted to be able to highlight some things for nurses, because I remember when I was post-op hip and knees, occasionally we would get patients that go into Afib after the surgery. What am I supposed to do with that? I'm a med-surg nurse. Well, it'd be great if I got an EKG and knew what to look for and how to give a report. And so I'm hoping that along the way, we learn that and then we strengthen each other as nurses as well. I also wanted to be able to connect patients to information outside of healthcare. Take, for example, the episode about strength and nutrition, and that would be so helpful to some of my patients. In fact, I saw a patient today who has some weight to lose before they can fit on the table in our EP lab to have an ablation. And how do you do that? You know, like, of course, I'm referring them to a weight management clinic, and I gave some good advice, but I can't go home and spend time with that patient and really help them become consistent. And so I want to give them other options outside of that. So finding a strength and nutrition coach, someone that can help you dig into where you are, that's going to improve your overall health. And so I want to be able to connect people like that. So
yeah, so your goal is education for the general public.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
How do you choose your topics and your guests on the show?
Well, I ask my friends, and no, I actually have asked some friends who I'm excited to have offered to be interviewed on the show in their various specialties so we can all learn more about it. I just have really picked things that are relevant and close to me right now. And then I hope to branch out to other areas. I hope people will leave comments on any of my social media accounts or on the podcast episodes of topics that they'd like to hear about, because I would like to learn. I'm just starting with what I have close by and then expanding.
Great plan. I'm sure it will grow and blossom as this takes shape. And so it's fantastic to be a part of it. Has there been any one particular standout moment to date? I know you're very early on in doing this, but so far with your couple of interviews under your belt and also the aforementioned episode on nutrition and lifestyle.
I think we're recording this after episode 3. Episode 1, of course, is the first episode, and with my friend Carlo, who is so entertaining in life in general and in the podcast. The fact that he was using a tool that we use with our patients and it found something that we would treat felt really, really relevant to me, and I've seen it happen more than once. And when I first came to UCSF, I was, actually, you'll get a kick out of this. Dr. Shaw kept telling patients that I was the expert on the AppleWatch. And I'm like thinking to myself, what? The expert? I'm like, I don't know how to, I don't know what this is. I'd take that title now because I fussed about it.
So you reached out to, was it Apple directly? How did you go about getting the technical background on it? Because I know you did the extra legwork.
I did. I tried to reach out to Apple. That is a hard fence to get over. I kept complaining to the vendors like Boston Scientific, Medtronic, all them. And my friend Jean Marie works for Boston Scientific, and she was like, oh, I know Dr. Perez at Stanford. He did some of the Apple Heart studies. I'll connect you with him. Dr. Perez was incredible. He set up a time. We met over Zoom. He talked to me about the AppleWatch and everything, and it was super informative. And, now we have a whole dot phrase in our medical records that we can share with patients. That's a really helpful tool. So yeah, it was like my friend had an issue, and then that was electrophysiology related, and he used this tool that now we know a lot about that we're using with our patients. So that episode, and it was my first one, always hold a special place in my heart. I think my favorite will likely always be the interview with Dr. Scheinman, though, because he is just a treasure, and I can't believe that I not only got to work with him, but that he would sit down and share his time with me. So that just really was a gift to me.
And that was a great interview. I loved listening to it and learning more about the personal side of Dr. Scheinman as well. You did a great job of not only touching upon his clinical background, but also Dr. Scheinman as a person. So
yeah, and
well done.
He's just brilliant and wonderful.
Yeah, he is delightful. As a mother of 4 and a healthcare professional, how do you balance work, family, and some of your personal passions like cycling and getting outside?
If you had asked me like 6 months ago, I would give you a better answer because I feel like right now I'm chasing my tail. Gosh, I started nursing school when my youngest went to VPK, which in Florida is like pre-K, so it's like a half-day school. So they were in school and mom was in school, and I don't know how I got through all those years, but my kids could tell you that I probably missed as many activities of all 4 of them that we can count on one hand. Like I was able to manipulate that schedule and get there. I think now that they're all grown-ups and adults, that's not a hard piece to juggle. I think I'm learning how to say no, to have better boundaries, and something I'm learning, and I hope that all the NP students that are listening and all the nurses that are listening remember is to slow down and not take on too much. You don't have to prove yourself. Learn as you go. And that's something that took me a long time. And I had to learn a lot of lessons for that. I think it's very important to have a good work-life balance and to do things that you enjoy. So cycling and being outside, skiing, hiking. I mean, we're lucky, so fortunate to live in Northern California where that's so accessible to us. But making the time to do that makes me a better clinician.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of career advice, what would it be?
Oh gosh, one piece. I think it would be just to believe in yourself. I always focus on patient access to care and delays in care, and I don't want that for my patients. I feel like I may have delayed some of my career moves because I was afraid, or I didn't think that I was qualified enough. And I think to do it even if you're afraid, to submit something, even if you're going to be rejected, it's experience. And that is one thing that I learned when I was interviewing to come out here on the West Coast. I interviewed for a heart failure position at Cedars-Sinai. I didn't really want to work in heart failure. I didn't really want to live in SoCal, but I was like, you never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to connect with. And so I think that I would have started my career like that.
Great advice. And what advice do you have for patients who want to take an active role in their cardiovascular health?
Wow, that's an awesome question. This is not medical advice. If you had a heart condition, Joan, I would tell you to make sure that you take a friend with you to your appointment, a family member, someone else that can hear what's being said. Because I know when it comes to the heart, people get really scared. And I would be really scared just because your heart's kind of important. And I think when we explain things, especially like take atrial fibrillation, for example, when I explain that to a patient, it is a lot of information and I feel like they're drinking from a fire hose. So if you have somebody with you that can also listen, I think that's super important. Then going to all of your follow-up appointments, understanding what's expected of you, and not, that sounds very authoritarian and that's not what I mean. Knowing, I was thinking from a device standpoint, because patients that have implanted cardiac devices in our clinic, our routine standard is to have their device checked once a year in person so that their leads can be tested and we can make sure everything looks good and talk to them in person. And then to have a remote transmission sent to us every 3 months. And a lot of people, I actually saw a patient today who when I told them that, they were like, oh, I didn't know how that worked. And I was like, absolutely. I'm sure you were told that at some point, but it doesn't sink in. And that's why having another person with you is super important.
Yeah. Repetition is always key, right?
Yeah.
Reinforcing.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to send questions to your provider. We have these wonderful electronic medical records. We use MyChart, Apex, Epic. And so I can send a message to my provider if I don't know what's going on or I want more information or I want to set up another follow-up to talk about it because I just maybe don't understand it. So I think don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to tell your provider if you don't understand because you should.
Yeah, getting clarification is key, especially when it comes to your health, right?
Right. And the other thing is be honest with them. If you drink a bottle of wine every night, tell them the truth.
Yeah.
If you're using cocaine or you're not exercising or you're not taking your medicine, it's okay. You are an autonomous being and you can do what you want. It is so far a free country, so you can do all that. But it's very hard for us as clinicians to be able to provide the best care for you if we don't know the truth.
That is an excellent statement. Very true. And what would you say, what's next for you? What are you thinking about as you kind of look down the road, whether it's in regards to this podcast or also in a larger sense in regards to your career?
I haven't really thought about that too much, but I think where the podcast goes, I'm producing it myself, so we'll see how that works out. I maybe could get some help from a producer. That'd be great because I'd love to do this more and maybe put out more episodes. It's just that's a hard thing to balance with working full time and all the other stuff that goes on. I think ideally I would like to start creating some continuing medical education for nurses and nurse practitioners and physician associates, because what I've been finding is a lot of that stuff that's out there for us is either too low a level, too high a level. A lot of stuff that we don't need to know is geared towards physicians or not geared towards information that we need. And I would like to make more specific education for us, especially if we're going to be spending our time and money on that. So that's a long-term goal. As far as my career goes, I really love working at UCSF Health. I love the opportunities that I have there. I reached out to a faculty member recently to audit a class on cardiac rhythms because I would love to know what we're teaching, and I will always learn something, even if it's basic EKG stuff. And the professor was super kind and wondered if I was interested in any kind of research with her. And I was like, absolutely. I would love to do that, because even though I have my doctorate and, I've written, a doctoral project, I haven't done much of that. And so I think I'd like the opportunity to do that and, continue my clinical role at UCSF, but, take any opportunity that's afforded to me and continue to grow and learn and be a great colleague with you.
You are an excellent colleague. We're always so grateful to have you as somebody who we can go to kind of get advice from. And I'm really thankful that we know one another, not only on a level through work as colleagues, but also as friends. And this has been a super enjoyable sit down. Thanks for asking me to do the honor of interviewing you. And I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much, Joan. I appreciate you doing this for me and with me and always being so supportive.
My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of In the Loop with Nadja Wlasiuk. I hope you found today's discussion insightful and empowering. Feel like diving deeper into the topics presented today? Be sure to check out the show notes for references and more helpful information. You can also visit our Substack or Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Remember to stay curious and stay informed. Now you're in the loop.